Hello everyone, my name is Whitney Akers and I am an assistant professor in the University of North Carolina at Pembroke's Department of Counseling. This video is to give you more information about our Photovoice study as you have been selected as a potential participant. As a queer and non-binary identified individual who's also been involved in activist and advocacy work and worked as a professional counselor with lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, gender expansive, and queer communities, I'm part of a research team that is interested in exploring the experience of activists serving LGBTGEQ+ communities. The research team hopes to gain a deeper understanding of activist experiences, specifically within the current sociopolitical climate and the COVID-19 pandemic. We are hoping to do so through reviewing participant-taken photographs and facilitating discussion of these photographs. For the purposes of this study, activism is defined as being currently engaged in work with and/or on behalf of LGBTGEQ+ individuals at the local, community, state, or national level to bring about political or social change. To participate in this study, you must meet the following requirements. A. Identify as an activist serving LGBTGEQ+ communities. Within this, you can identify within or outside of LGBTGEQ+ communities yourself. B. Live in any state in the U.S. and be willing to participate in an online discussion group lasting no more than 1.5 to 2 hours. C. Be actively involved in activism and/or advocacy work in your community around LGBTGEQ+ concerns. D. Be at least 18 years of age. And E. Have access to a computer or phone with a microphone, webcam, and the internet. Throughout this study, we will ask you to take pictures of your experience of engaging in activism with and on behalf of LGBTGEQ+ communities. When taking these pictures, please keep in mind the way that these pictures relate to the current socio-political context and COVID-19 pandemic. We will also ask you how you make meaning of the pictures you take depicting your experiences serving LGBTGEQ+ communities within the current socio-political context and COVID-19 pandemic. I also want to review the structure of this study from this point forward in terms of what participants need to know. So after you watch this video, you will be asked to sign the consent form, and if this is an electronic consent form, and then you can begin taking photographs. Over the course of 2 weeks, each individual will be asked to take 10 photographs aimed at depicting your experiences as activists serving LGBTGEQ+ communities. You can choose to use your own photo-taking device, such as your phone camera or your own personal camera, or you can use a disposable camera that I will send to you via mail. Please keep in mind the way your experience of activism with and on behalf of LGBTGEQ+ communities is impacted by the current sociopolitical context and the COVID-19 pandemic. At the end of the 2-week period, for participants using their own electronic device, so your own camera or your phone camera, please review the taken photographs and begin thinking of which photographs most accurately reflect your experiences. For participants using the disposable camera, please develop these photographs using funds provided by the research team. Review your taken photographs and begin thinking of which photographs most accurately reflect your experiences. So after all photographs have been reviewed, each participant will select up to 3 of their photographs that adequately convey their intended ideas. For those who have taken photos on their own devices, please upload these selected photographs to the Google Drive folder that will be shared between me, the researcher, and you, the participant. This Google Drive folder is password protected and private, being only shared between participant and researcher. For those using a disposable camera, please mail the 3 selected photographs to me. The research team will cover the cost of postage. Once I receive these photographs in the mail, I will scan the photographs into a password-protected computer and then upload the photographs onto the private and password-protected Google Drive folder shared between the researcher and the individual participant, in order to make these photographs accessible for use in our discussion group. So once all photos have been uploaded to the Google Drive folder and shared between the researcher and participant, each participant will be asked to develop a title and a caption describing how each of their selected photographs depicts their experience as an activist serving LGBTGEQ+ communities. Participants will also be asked to fill out the showed paradigm for each selected photograph, and the showed paradigm is as follows. 1. What is the significance of this photograph? 2. What is really happening? 3. How does this relate to our lives as community activists who work with and on behalf of LGBTGEQ+ communities? 4. Why does the need for your community activism exist? 5, what has been your experience and emotions taking or selecting these photographs? And 6, what feels important for us, participants, researchers, families, lawmakers, religious leaders, counselors, the general public, etc., to do now? Participants will submit the showed paradigms to the researcher via the Google Drive folder, or you can email these to me prior to discussion group in preparation for this focus group discussion. So please be mindful of confidentiality when uploading, emailing, or mailing pictures. Make sure that you double check the email address or the physical address to ensure that your materials come directly to me. I wanted to offer an example of a selective photograph and accompanying materials. If you are able to open the form entitled the training video script, you will see that there is a photograph here that was taken by a participant in describing their experience. So they entitled the photograph, "Two Moms, When a Supreme Court Judge Nomination Threatens the Foundation of Your Family and So Many Like Yours, and Your Kid Comes to a March." So in the showed paradigm, the first one, the S, what is the significance of this photograph? They said, "For the first time, my child was able to take part in a protest against a Supreme Court nomination that was against LGBTQIA+ rights. My kid was able to see the power of collective community organizing and raise her voice with so many committed to justice." For the H, what is really happening? The participant said, "My child drew this picture for me and my partner when marriage equality was passed. We've kept this photo on our fridge to remind us of the fight for rights in which we and our kindred LGBTQIA+ ancestors have engaged. With the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett, my child recognizes the threats to our family and so many like us, and she has placed this front and center to keep our minds on the need for activist work." For the O, how does this relate to our lives as community activists who work with and on behalf of LGBTQIA+ communities? The participant stated, "I think as activists, we have to understand that our work is never over. There is always need for activism, and we must continue to fight for what is right and just. There is also a sadness connected to this continued fight for what that has existed before me and will continue to exist after me." For the W, why does the need for your community activism exist? The participant stated, "We live in a socio-political context that has repeatedly attacked the existence of LGBTQIA+ individuals through destructive and violent actions and intentional inaction." For the E, how would you describe your experience and emotions taking and selecting this photograph? The participant stated, "I felt overjoyed to have this photograph option, as it shows the solidarity within my family. I also felt sadness that the availability of marriage to LGBTQ+ individuals still feels up for debate." For the D, what feels important for us, participants, researchers, families, lawmakers, religious leaders, counselors, and the general public to do now? The participant stated, "We need to engage with spiritual and political leaders to change the environment of churches and the overall attitudes about same-gender marriage. I think that there has been a lot of progress, but we are not done, and we also need to work for the safety of all in our community so that we can all live and love without fear of losing rights." So that's just an example of what you all can create using the photographs that you choose and reflecting on the meaning of those. For stage 2 of our study, this is contextualizing and storytelling. This is when you all will be asked to meet online for a discussion group of photographs and captions. The virtual group meeting will be held via Zoom and last no more than 1.5 to 2 hours. The group discussion will be audio recorded and transcribed with participant consent in an effort to capture the nuances of verbal exchanges. An additional researcher will also be present to take field notes to capture any in-the-moment experiences or reactions to group discussion. All researchers will be bound to an agreement to maintain confidentiality, and the online discussion group will be held through a private online web conference, and the transcript from the group discussion will be kept for data analysis after it is de-identified. Prior to the focus group, I will combine all submitted photographs, titles, and captions and showed paradigm answers to electronically post in the virtual meeting room for group review before group processing begins. When you enter into the group discussion, participants will spend the first 15 minutes of the focus group time looking at the images and reading the information provided by each participant. To facilitate a dialogue about an analysis of the photographs, myself and the additional researcher will ask discussion questions in a semi-structured interview. We will pose the following questions. 1, what did you notice about the pictures? Also, which picture stood out to you? What ideas or thoughts felt new to you in regard to your experience as an activist with and on behalf of LGBTGEQ+ communities? What ideas felt new to you in regard to the ways in which your experiences are impacted by the current socio-political context and COVID-19 pandemic? We also might explore what ideas or thoughts felt familiar in regard to your experiences as an activist with and on behalf of LGBTGEQ+ communities, and which ideas felt familiar in regard to the ways in which your experiences are impacted by the current socio-political context and COVID-19 pandemic. We'll also explore what emotions maybe emerged for you as you were viewing the collective group's pictures. After reviewing all photographs, we'll enter into stage 3, which is identifying themes. Participants will be asked to consider any themes that you felt have emerged from discussion. Questions to guide this process are as follows. What themes did you see in the pictures, titles, captions, and showed paradigms? For the purpose of our discussion, a theme will be defined as having approximately 4 compelling photographs, titles, captions, or stories, or combinations of these that emerged during your exploring the photographs. We'll ask, what were the repeated images, ideas, and experiences specifically related to your experiences as an activist with and on behalf of LGBTGEQ+ communities? And we'll also ask, what were repeated images, ideas, or experiences specifically related to how your experiences as activists are impacted by the current sociopolitical context and COVID-19 pandemic? We'll also ask if there were other general repeated images, ideas, or experiences. And then finally, we'll close by exploring what you as participants would like counselors and counselor educators to know regarding serving activists who serve as LGBTGEQ+ communities. So here we'll really want to know what you would like counselors and counselors in training to understand when working with you as clients. We'll then enter stage 4, planning for action. And so before discussion group ends, the group will revisit the number 6 of the showed paradigm. What feels important for us, participants, researchers, families, lawmakers, religious leaders, counselors, and the general public to do now. And we'll define we to be inclusive of people in power at all levels, inviting participants to engage in critical thought and dialogue about your power to affect change and desired responses from your communities at large. The researchers will facilitate a collective discussion among the group members, exploring if or how you all would like to see the results of this study used within the community. Participation in group action is not a required component of the study, but you will have the option to participate in social action initiatives as collectively determined by the group. You will not be forced to do so, however. Also, you'll be able to state if you authorize your photographs to be used through a signed release form in your absence. If you do not explicitly authorize the use of your photographs will not be used in any future way. In order to begin preparation for the group's action plan, if one emerges, researchers will gain consent from all participants indicating if the researcher has permission to reprint or use all participant photographs, selected participant photographs, or no participant photographs in the project or subsequent publications or social actions. We'll then enter into stage 5 of analysis, and this is where the research team will analyze the transcript of the group discussion. We'll also look at the photographs, the showed paradigms, and the captions and titles for the photographs. And we will electronically send any found themes to all participants to solicit your feedback. Your feedback in this phase is important to helping ensure that we have accurately captured your experiences in the group discussion. However, your level of involvement in this member checking is completely optional. We'll also check with you to ensure that the themes garnered from data analysis do not compromise your anonymity in any way. If any participant indicates that a theme does compromise their anonymity, the researchers will attempt to edit the theme to maintain anonymity, or if this is not possible, we will remove the theme altogether. So finally, we will enter into our stage 6, the what can we do about it? And in this stage, we will assess the next steps based on your directed goals and action plan. As participants, you can be involved in whatever capacity you see fit, and the research team will assist the group in actualizing this action plan. I'd also like to review some ethical considerations as you engage as participant photographers in this project. In terms of identity exposure, you will be known by group members as you're being asked to appear via Zoom to discuss your experience. You'll be required to use selected pseudonyms to maintain your anonymity in terms of publications and discussing group participation. If you do not want to show your face in the Zoom focus group, you can turn off your camera and only use the audio. Before discussion, I will ask that you indicate your preferred pseudonym and name on the pseudonym selection form. In terms of potential for harm in this project, your safety and well-being are vital. Please take extra care to maintain your own safety. There are risks to including yourself or other human subjects in photographs. For example, depending on the safety of your surroundings, physical harm and loss of privacy may result from participation in this Photovoice project. You also risk exposing your identity through the picture that you choose to take. Remember, no picture is worth taking if it begets the photographer harm or ill will. Additionally, there are rights of non-participants that we need to review. I would be remiss if I didn't facilitate critical thought about respecting others' privacy and rights. Every person has the right to avoid identity exposure by a picture that is taken without consent being given. This could happen if you take a picture of someone who's not publicly out about their identity or about their activist work with and on behalf of LGBTQIA+ communities, potentially exposing their identity or outing them. Participants are asked to obtain consent from the people that they photograph. This form, a consent form for participants depicted in for non-participants depicted in photographs, will be accessible to you in the Google Drive folder labeled Training Follow-up Materials. Additionally, if you choose to include a photograph of a minor of which you have custody or guardianship, please be sure to sign the consent specifically for minor inclusion in photographs. Please do not photograph people's faces or your own face, as these photographs cannot be used in the study. Photographed individuals also have a right to receiving a copy of the picture in which they are depicted. You can give this picture as an expression of appreciation, respect, or camaraderie. So think about how you would like to share these photographs that you might take of others with them. It's also important to be aware of the power of the camera holder. There is a certain power and authority that comes with using a camera in your community. So make sure that you do not intrude on someone's space publicly or privately. Ensure that you have the ability to portray someone in the photograph in a positive light, because you also could do so in a negative light, and we want to avoid doing that. And make sure that you do not take any photographs of illegal activity. There are some questions to keep in mind while you're taking pictures. One of which being, what is an acceptable way to approach someone to take their picture? Also, should someone take pictures of other people without their knowledge? The answer to that is absolutely not. We cannot do that because that's not ethical and it's not honoring one's consent to be photographed. Additionally, what kind of responsibility does carrying a camera confer? You might also consider what you would not want to be photographed doing and make sure that you're not photographing others doing this thing. Additionally, you might also explore, as we mentioned earlier, to whom you might wish to give the photographs and what might be the implications. In terms of camera techniques, we're going to just go over some basic techniques around positioning of photographs, frame, and lighting. So when you're positioning the photograph, you want to explore positioning the subject in the center, maybe off to the side, close up, or far away. You can feel free to depict people, objects, patterns, nature, etc. in your photographs. You have the freedom in deciding how you want to depict your experiences. This can be symbolically, metaphorically, or realistically. If people other than yourself are depicted in photographs, they must sign that waiver, and you can find this waiver entitled Photovoice Project Release Form for Individuals Depicted in Photographs in the Google Drive folder entitled Training Follow-up Materials. In terms of frame, make sure that you position yourself to capture only what is needed in the frame. Photographs often have extra things in the frame that distract from the focus of the photograph. Remain aware of the background in your photo. Watch for clutter or unintentional inclusion of objects or people. And this can include people that are unintentionally included in the photograph who have not signed a consent to be photographed. Explore if there are objects or elements in the background of your photograph that are important in communicating your desired message or idea. In terms of lighting, when trying to avoid harsh shadows, shoot photographs of people in covered shades so that the light is more even across your subjects. Also try to place the sun at your back when you're shooting your photographs. This could help you avoid backlit subjects with shadowy faces, unless of course this is your intention because you're being creative in the way that you choose to take a photo. Allow yourself flexibility to creatively play with light, experimenting with lighting and how it might affect your pictures. Remember that the flash will not reach very far in dark conditions like nighttime. Therefore, try to limit dark or night photographs to objects that are within arm's length. During the daytime, if you're outdoors, keep the sun behind you to illuminate your subject. Also, you might even need to use the flash on a sunny day outdoors. You'll be able to tell as you review your photographs after taking them. And then also, please keep your finger away from the lens and flash to make sure that you capture your intended picture. In terms of access to cameras, if you're using your own device, this is absolutely okay. It actually makes the ease for uploading to the Google Drive folder much easier. If you're using a disposable camera, please email me to request one and I will send one to your address. And then you'll just follow the instructions for use on that device. For both modes of taking photographs, your own device or a disposable camera, make sure that you hold the camera steady and release the shutter button carefully. Steady yourself so that you can avoid shaking or moving the camera, which can lead to a blurry or less sharp image. And then finally, in terms of creativity, be creative and experiment with your photographs. You have the freedom to use your imagination when depicting your experience as an activist with and on behalf of LGBTQIA+ communities. So moving forward, please address any questions to me at the email address wpaphotovoice@gmail.com. Electronically sign the informed consent, which is available as a Google document in the Google Drive electronic folder entitled Training Follow-Up Materials. And then please review the training guidelines and procedures for detailed explanations. You can see the document entitled Steps for Completing Your Photovoice Project in the electronic folder entitled Training Follow-Up Materials on the Google Drive. And then begin photographing. For detailed steps, again, you can see the steps for completing your Photovoice project. Thank you so much for considering participation. Whether or not you're interested in participating yourself, I invite you to consider passing this information on about the study. Please also pass my contact information on to others who you know that may be interested in participating. I so value your time, energy, and creativity. Thanks again.